She was already leaning over my fence when I noticed her, hands on hips, sunglasses glinting in the sun. "You need to have the pool ready by Saturday," she said, like she was placing an order at a drive-thru. I blinked, thinking I misheard. "Excuse me?" She smirked. "HOA approved my request. I'm hosting my niece's birthday party here." I laughed, but it wasn't the funny kind. It was the kind that means you've lost your mind. "This is my pool, Karen. My property." Her face hardened. "The neighborhood owns it, and if you refuse, we'll fine you and take legal action." I didn't even have an HOA. That's when the little alarm bells in my head went off. She was bluffing, but with that smug confidence only she could pull off. "You're going to regret being difficult," she warned, turning sharply on her heels. The next 2 days, she kept stopping by, reminding me of the party, and even dropping off boxes of paper plates and balloons on my porch without knocking. By Friday night, something in me snapped. If she thought she could hijack my backyard, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. So while the neighborhood slept, I walked outside with my pump and started draining the pool, every last drop disappearing into the grass under the glow of the street lamp. And just as the sun rose the next morning, I saw her storming up my driveway, phone already in hand. "I'm calling the cops," she shouted. "You destroyed community property." That was when I smiled, because I knew something she didn't. I leaned against the empty pool ladder, watching her pace in the driveway like she was preparing for a courtroom drama. "This is destruction of HOA assets," she barked into the phone, loud enough for the whole street to hear. I crossed my arms. "Karen, we don't even have an HOA," I said, but she waved me off like I was a kid interrupting adults. A few minutes later, a police cruiser rolled up, lights flashing. My neighbors peeked through curtains, whispering. Karen rushed toward the officers, pointing at me. "He vandalized community property! He emptied our pool!" Her voice cracked with fake outrage. One officer turned to me. "Sir, is this true?" I walked over slowly, holding a single piece of paper. "Before you say anything, you might want to see this." I handed him the property deed with my name printed in bold, black ink. The officer's eyebrows went up. "This pool is on your land." Karen's face twitched, but she kept her chin high. "That can't be right. The HOA rules—" "There is no HOA here, ma'am," the officer interrupted, flipping the deed back to me. "And making a false police report is a crime." Karen's mouth opened, but before she could respond, a second cruiser pulled up. The man stepping out wasn't in a standard police uniform. He wore a county sheriff's badge and a suit jacket. He looked directly at me and said, "Hey, Marine, didn't expect to see you here." Karen's head snapped toward me. "Marine," she repeated, her voice shaky now. She had no idea the real trouble she'd just stepped into. The sheriff walked straight past Karen and shook my hand like we were old friends, which, technically, we were. "Haven't seen you since the hurricane relief mission," he said with a grin. Karen froze mid-step, her eyes darting between us. "You know him?" she asked, her voice quieter now. "Know him?" The sheriff chuckled. "This man's the reason half this county has a roof over their heads. He's also the guy who trained our SWAT team in crowd control." The words hit her like a brick. She swallowed hard, the confidence draining from her face faster than I drained that pool. "I think there's been some misunderstanding," she stammered. But the sheriff's expression had already shifted from friendly to official. "Ma'am, you claimed there was an HOA here and that this pool was community property. That's fraud." Karen tried to backpedal, waving her hands. "I didn't mean fraud. I just—" But she stopped when the sheriff pulled out his phone and showed her the neighborhood's public records. No HOA, no shared amenities, no community pool, and then came the real twist. He turned the screen toward me. "You might want to see this too," he said. It was a video, clear as day, of Karen standing in front of my fence 2 nights ago, bragging to a friend he won't even know until the party's already started. My neighbors, who had been watching from their lawns, gasped. Karen's face went pale as the sheriff's deputy stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." But I wasn't done yet. I stepped forward before the deputy could cuff her. "Hold on," I said, my voice calm but sharp enough to cut the tension. "Before you take her, I want the neighborhood to hear something." The sheriff nodded, stepping aside. Karen's eyes widened. "This isn't necessary." "Oh, it is," I interrupted. I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit play on a second clip from my security cameras. This one showed her slipping into my backyard earlier in the week with a clipboard, taping a fake HOA notice to my back door. Her own handwriting read, "Pool reserved for community use. Failure to comply will result in fines." A few people in the crowd muttered angrily. One neighbor even shook his head and said, "She did the same thing with my driveway last year." Karen's voice cracked. "I was just trying to take what doesn't belong to you," I finished. I turned to the sheriff. "You can take her now." The deputy guided her toward the cruiser, and that's when she lost it, thrashing, shouting, "This isn't over! You'll regret this!" I leaned on the fence, watching her go. "Karen," I called out, "I fought for this country so people could live free on their own land, not so you could treat it like your personal playground." The sheriff smirked, neighbors clapped, and as the cruiser pulled away, I felt the kind of quiet satisfaction you can't buy. But I had no idea. Karen wasn't the only one in the neighborhood who had been plotting against me. Later that evening, I was sitting on my porch, letting the calm settle in, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, until the voice on the other end made my skin crawl. "You think you've won?" It was a man's voice, low and deliberate. "Karen was just the face. Now you've got our attention." I straightened in my chair. "Who is this?" He chuckled. "Let's just say, some of us like the way she handled things, and we don't appreciate you making her look like a fool." Before I could respond, the line went dead. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house made my mind race. By morning, my security cameras had pinged me twice, motion detected at the back fence. I checked the footage. 2 figures in hoodies, shining flashlights into my yard. They didn't come in, but they were mapping it out like they were planning something. I called the sheriff, told him about the call and the footage. His tone shifted immediately. "I'll be there in 20. Don't go outside." 20 minutes turned into 15, but by then it was too late. One of the hooded figures had stepped right up to my porch. I opened the door just enough to meet his eyes, and that's when I noticed the patch on his sleeve. An HOA emblem. Only we didn't have an HOA, which meant someone had just made a much bigger move than Karen ever could. The man didn't flinch when I spotted the patch. He leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're going to wish you'd just let her have the pool." His breath smelled like cheap coffee and cigarettes, and for a split second, I caught the glint of something metallic in his hand. Not a weapon, but a key ring, with a master lock key. Before I could react, headlights swept across the yard. The sheriff's SUV rolled up fast, gravel crunching under the tires. The man in the hoodie slipped back into the shadows, vanishing between my neighbor's hedges. The sheriff jumped out. "Was that him?" he asked, scanning the street. I nodded. He had a key to something. We checked the footage together inside, slowing it frame by frame. That's when we both saw it. On the key ring was a small brass tag engraved with a number, Lot 47. The sheriff's face tightened. "That's not even a house. That's an empty plot, owned by a shell company." I frowned. "So what's there?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at me and said, "If I'm right, this isn't about a pool. It's about the land under it." My stomach dropped. Suddenly, Karen's fake HOA notices, her obsession with my backyard, it all made sense. and just as the sheriff was about to explain, his radio crackled. A deputy's voice came through. "We've got movement at Lot 47, and you're gonna want to see this?" We headed out, not knowing that what was hidden there would turn my quiet street into the center of the biggest scandal the county had ever seen. We pulled up to Lot 47, the sheriff's SUV bouncing over the uneven dirt road. In the dark, it looked like just another patch of overgrown weeds and broken fencing, until the deputy's flashlight swept across the far corner. There, half hidden, under a tarp, was a massive industrial generator, the kind you'd see powering a construction site. But there was no construction, no permits, no reason for it to be here. The sheriff crouched down, yanking the tarp aside. Underneath, we found cables running underground, disappearing toward my property line. "They've been tapping into your utilities," he muttered, following the cords with his light. "Power, maybe even water, straight to whatever they're running here." The deputy glanced at me. "Sir, you didn't notice higher bills?" I shook my head. "They were always high in the summer, thought it was the pool pump." That's when we found the second tarp, this one covering a stack of sealed crates marked with shipping labels from overseas. The sheriff ripped one open and froze. Inside were neatly packed cases of surveillance equipment, cameras, mics, even drone kits. "What the hell is this?" I whispered. The sheriff stood slowly, his jaw tight. "This isn't just about Karen being greedy. This is organized. And if they've been using your property as a cover," he didn't finish, because headlights suddenly flared from the other side of the lot. 3 black SUVs rolling toward us fast, engines growling. Karen might have been in handcuffs, but it was clear her people had just arrived. The SUVs skidded to a stop, dust curling up in the headlights. Doors flew open and half a dozen men stepped out, all in matching dark jackets. No badges, no names, just the same strange emblem stitched on their sleeves as the guy who came to my porch. The sheriff's hand went to his holster, his voice low. "Stay behind me." One of the men stepped forward. "This is private property," he called out. The sheriff barked a laugh. "Not anymore. It's a crime scene." Tension hung in the air like a live wire. I noticed 2 of them splitting off, circling toward my property line. My gut twisted. "They're heading for my house," I hissed. That's when the sheriff's radio erupted with another deputy's voice. "We've got movement at the suspect's residence, possible forced entry." Before I could think, I was already moving. The sheriff cursed but followed, his boots pounding the dirt. The men from the SUVs didn't chase us. They just watched, smiling like they knew we were too late. We cut through the side street, my heart hammering. And when my house came into view, my stomach dropped. My back gate was wide open, and the glow from inside told me someone was already in. I was halfway up the yard when a figure stepped into my kitchen light, holding something in his hands, something I recognized instantly. It was my pool pump. Only it wasn't just a pump anymore. It had been gutted and rebuilt. And what was inside looked like something that definitely wasn't meant for a suburban backyard. The man turned the pump toward the light, and I finally saw it clearly. Wires, circuit boards, and a strange blinking device tucked inside a metal casing. It wasn't a pool pump anymore. It was some kind of transmitter. He caught sight of me and froze for just a second. That was all I needed. I lunged forward, grabbing his arm and slamming him against the counter. The device clattered to the floor with a dull thud. The sheriff burst in behind me, weapon drawn. "Step away from that!" he barked. The man just sneered. "You have no idea what you're messing with." The sheriff scooped up the device and studied it, his expression hardening. "This isn't just theft, this is espionage-grade equipment." The man didn't deny it. He just smiled like he knew something we didn't. "Too late," he muttered. "Signals already sent." Before I could ask what he meant, the radio on the sheriff's shoulder crackled. "All units, be advised. Federal agents en route. Repeat, federal agents inbound." The sheriff looked at me. You'd better get ready. When the feds show up, your backyard is about to be the center of an investigation that's bigger than anything Karen could have dreamed of. I thought this nightmare would end with her in handcuffs, but now it felt like she had just been the opening act. Within minutes, the low hum of helicopters cut through the night air. My backyard lit up under blinding spotlights as black vans and unmarked sedans swarmed the street. Men in tactical gear poured out, rifles slung tight, moving with the precision of people who'd done this 100 times before. A tall agent with a windbreaker that read FBI stepped forward. "Mr. Carter?" he asked, eyes scanning the scene. I nodded. He didn't waste time. "We've been tracking this group for months. Your property has been used as a covert relay point for illegal overseas communications." I stared at him. "You're telling me my pool pump was a spy transmitter?" He nodded grimly. "And based on the frequency they were using, they weren't just talking to each other. They were sending data to another country." The sheriff handed him the gutted pump. "One of their men was caught inside with this." The agent motioned to his team, who immediately began sweeping the yard, pulling up cables I didn't even know were buried under my lawn. Every time they unearthed a new wire or hidden device, my stomach sank lower. And then came the biggest shock. The agent returned, holding a small waterproof case. He set it on my porch and flipped it open. Inside was a stack of files, each one with addresses, bank accounts, and personal details of people in my neighborhood. The top file had my name on it. Before I could process it, the agent said, "Mr. Carter, whoever's behind this isn't done. This operation goes way beyond Karen. She was just one of many. And we think the real leader is still here in town, somewhere in the shadows of my quiet neighborhood. Someone was watching us right now." The FBI agent's radio crackled, and a voice came through, urgent. "Target spotted, east end of the neighborhood, moving on foot." The agent turned to me. "Stay here." I shook my head. "Not a chance. If this is the one pulling the strings, I'm seeing it through." The sheriff gave me a look that said arguing was pointless, then tossed me a tactical flashlight. We moved quickly, cutting between houses, following the distant beam of another agent's light. My pulse was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. We reached the edge of the cul-de-sac, and there, standing under a flickering street lamp, was a figure in a dark coat, calm as if they'd been expecting us. As we stepped closer, the hood came down. My jaw nearly hit the ground. It wasn't some stranger from out of town. It was Mr. Dalton, the HOA president from 2 streets over, the one everyone thought was just a harmless retiree with a love for gardening. Dalton's eyes narrowed at me. "You should have left it alone, Carter. This neighborhood runs on order, and I decide what that order is." The FBI agent moved in. "You're done, Dalton. We have the equipment, the files, and your people in custody." Dalton just smiled faintly. "You have some of my people." Suddenly, a car engine roared too. "Life behind us." I turned just in time to see a black sedan speeding away down the back road. Dalton's smile widened, "And you'll never catch the rest." But before he could take another step, the sheriff's voice rang out, "Oh, I think we will." He pointed upward, where a drone hovered silently, its camera locked on the fleeing car, broadcasting live to every FBI tablet in the area. Dalton's smirk faded. Agents closed in, cuffs snapped, and he was walked to a waiting van. As they took him away, the sheriff clapped me on the shoulder. "Looks like your pool just helped take down a federal crime ring." I looked at the empty shell of my drained pool under the moonlight and couldn't help but laugh. Guess the next party here will be a celebration, and Karen's not on the guest list. A week later, the neighborhood felt different, quieter, safer. The FBI trucks were gone, the hidden cables and devices ripped out, and my backyard finally looked like mine again. The only reminder of the chaos was the empty pool, still bone dry under the summer sun. I was sipping coffee on the porch when the sheriff stopped by. He handed me an envelope. Inside was an official letter from the county thanking me for my assistance in a joint federal investigation. At the bottom was a handwritten note. Your service to this country didn't end in uniform. R. Hayes. I glanced toward the street where neighbors waved as they walked by. People who once kept to themselves now stopping to chat, maybe because they knew I'd fought to keep this place safe. That night, as I stood at the edge of the HOA pool, I thought about refilling it. Not for parties or HOA fantasies, but for my family, my friends. People who respected the meaning of owning your own land. And as for Karen, word was she took a plea deal. She wouldn't be throwing any more community parties anytime soon, unless the prison yard counted. I smiled, walking back inside. This was my home, my land. And no one, not an HOA, not a fake cop, not even a federal-level crime ring, was ever going to take it from me again.